You're listening to The RealWealth Show with Kathy Fettke, the real estate investor's resource.
Hey, it's Kathy Fettke, and welcome to The RealWealth Show. I've got my co-CEO and co-life partner with me, Rich Fettke.
Hello.
And we're both here today because we've started a new series at RealWealth called RealWealth Stories. And we've just been so excited to hear what our members have been doing. We have, over 56,000 members now?
A little over 53,000. Yep.
Oh, okay. And
we'll be 56,000 quickly.
I was jumping ahead. But, we've known a lot of these people. Many people have been in the network for some as many as 15, 18 years. So we wanted to just check in and see who's really living the real wealth lifestyle and sharing that with you to be inspired.
Yeah. And of course, real wealth is, having the money and the freedom to live life on your own terms. So looking for inspirational stories, people are actually making that work or at least have a game plan and are taking action on that game plan. So they're living life on their own terms.
So today's guests were supposed to be Michelle and Kevin, but they have a baby and the baby decided to keep Michelle up all night. So she is sleeping, trying to catch up. So we've got Kevin here joining us to talk about how they have gotten started in real estate and have a dream to build a pretty big portfolio.
Yeah. Really good future vision.
Yeah. So Kevin, welcome to the Real Wealth Show. So what we would love to just know is, first and foremost, what inspired you to start investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I was on the early train of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My dad actually had encouraged me to read it when I was in high school at 16. And he mentioned that he thought that there were a lot of similarities between the author and myself. Being rebellious, I put it off until I was about 18. And as I read it, a lot of lessons came out that really made a lot of sense, namely the lessons that we'd been taught: go to school, get good grades, get a good job, buy a house, get married, save for retirement, have kids. With everything changing, that didn't really make sense as much anymore. So I was looking for a way to do something extraordinary with real estate as my vehicle.
Okay. And so 16, yeah, I don't think our kids have read our books either.
Yeah, man, I wish I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back then.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But 18 is still good. So, and then it sounds like your wife also, Michelle, inherited some property, and that was kind of at first a big pain in the booty, but then she learned how to make that an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was actually really interesting to hear one of your former interviews it was a pharmacist who was doing something out of the Stockton area with university properties. Because when we heard that, I was like, oh, that sounds really familiar. And so when they inherited it at first, they really set it up much the same way, not necessarily university students, but individual room rentals, which allowed for the cash flow. And while that can work, it also can add up to more work. And as we were talking about our future and wanting to spend more time together, then that became a little more challenging. And so that made it really helpful I had already connected with you guys before, so we kind of put two and two together and we could have the best of both worlds, we figured.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, at least in the pre-interview, she said she was busy, didn't have the time to deal with this property. It was costing money to upkeep, and she didn't know what to do. Didn't know if she should sell it or rent it. So she just rented a couple of rooms just to cover the cost of it while trying to figure out what to do with it, and ended up renting all 4 rooms and cash flowing. And that was maybe her start in realizing that passive income is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And being able to parlay the good parts of it without all the challenging parts, I think, was the really exciting part.
Interesting. Yeah, it's like getting thrown into becoming a landlord. That's what happened with Kathy and me in our first house. And we started to rent out some rooms, and we're like, oh, we started to get this thing called being a landlord. That was kind of our introduction too.
Yeah.
So good for you guys.
Yeah. It's so what you said you found a way to have have it all? Basically, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, we really liked the passive income idea, which was one of the things from Rich Dad Poor Dad, and with the California properties too. It's we are big fans of the show. We listen to everything that you guys put out, and we agree with a lot of the same things because we found them to be the same. Where California property, if you've got some of it, then that's great right now, but there are certain challenges to it, and if we can move some of those positive things like cash flow and further appreciation potential, and moving to more landlord friendly states, then we can do all of that and have our time back. Nice. From that. I think that's one of the biggest things, because one of the other takeaways from I've been with you guys for about 7 or 8 years, and one of the presentations I remember from one of the previous Dallas teams was, what's your why behind why you are investing? And for us, it's certainly retirement for us, but now as we start a family, it's legacy for our family as well. So nice. That's being able to put the time with our family and then giving something to them. I think that's really meaningful for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're all about, is real wealth, and I'm sure you know how we define that. And this is a real wealth story. So what is real wealth for you? Like, when you look into your future, what is real wealth, living life on your own terms, look like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we think about it all the time. And Rich, I actually remember one of your sessions where you had us go through 7 or 8 categories where we ranked ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10, personal finance, romance, physical health, mental health. And so I think that's actually a really good guide for us. So we kind of take stock of where we are from one year to the next. And I tried to tweak it a little and add a couple of follow-up questions on, how can I improve this score by 2 points next year? What actionable items can we take to do that? And so that's really, I think, where we've instead of in lieu of New Year's resolutions or anything like that, that's really been our big picture compass, if you will.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love the life balance wheel, because it gives you a snapshot of your life based on how satisfied you are, not what society says or anyone else says. It's like, you can really trust your gut and just say, how satisfied am I on a scale of 0 to 10 in this area of my life, and go around. So, and it's really cool. Kathy and I do it too. And, you can kind of see, are we in sync or are we off? It's like, is one person a 5 on romance and the other person's a 9, and, different areas you get to check in and see where it is. So good, really good for you guys.
Yeah. And I think the other thing we've taken away is you're not really going to go from a 2 to a 9 or a 10 in 1 year. It's just not really feasible from what we've seen. And even if you do, then your other scores are likely going to take a hit.
Yeah,
and so that's one of the things that we found doing this over the course of the few years too.
That's awesome. What is, as far as investing as a couple, obviously Kathy and I have been investing as a couple for, almost 25 years now. What are the challenges that you've experienced investing as a couple, and how did you deal with those challenges?
Yeah, fortunately, we've mostly been on the same page so far, which is great.
It is great.
But I think the toughest part is when things aren't going as planned. And I think one of the biggest challenges we had was we partnered with one of the Chicago providers that you guys had worked with, and things weren't going super swell there. And it was right around the time of our wedding, actually, and the costs were adding up. The property was in building court, and it just seemed like there was no end in sight. And with the wedding on the horizon, plus the cost of this property, it was just difficult in many instances to just stay sane and positive. And so just going back to what's the why? Well, the why is down the road. This is, I guess, what they call experience. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, I think is the quote that comes to mind. So we've had instances like that where we've really had to lean on each other and to stay positive, because sometimes it's hard when things aren't going your way. And in those instances, just have to trust the process, I guess.
All right. So it sounds like you kind of lift each other up at different times when the other one needs lifting up, kind of like, let's look at the bright side or whatever. And
Exactly.
Really
big
Is one
picture.
of you more of the analyst and one is more the go for it? Are you similar personalities as far as your amount of analyzing things and all that?
Yeah, I think we're mostly in sync. She's pretty ambitious too, which is great. In
Nice.
our conversations with our investment counselor, Leah, she absolutely is just as ambitious. And why can't we add more? Let's add more. And that's great. And for me, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, well, which teams, which areas. Well, one of the criteria I've learned is how long has this team been partners with RealWealth? I think that's one criteria that we found to be quite helpful, because I've seen a lot of teams and a lot of presentations, and after a while it gets really difficult to see what might be good in one team's presentation versus in the next versus the actual reality.
Yeah.
And so just being with you guys for as long as I have, being able to the teams that have passed the test of time, that's been helpful as well. But yeah, we're both looking to hit the gas pedal.
That's awesome.
So which markets did you choose and why?
So the first market that we chose, and I feel like this is a consistent theme with the members as well, we were pointed in the direction of the team in Cincinnati, and I never thought that was where I was going to begin my real estate investing career. But one of the shows that my wife and I are very keen on is The Profit with Marcus Lemonis, and he was saying one of the things is when you invest in people, product, and processes. And I think that's a great illustration of how and why so many members have successfully invested in Cincinnati with that team. And so that's how we started, and we've expanded there a bit. But we also have been plugged into everything you guys have been saying with the growth being in the South and the Southeast. So that's with our age, we figured, hey, we could probably up our risk profile a little bit.
That's nice. And you guys are early 30s?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good for you. That's
So,
great.
yeah, Cincinnati's a great place to kind of dive in and learn a lot because it is pretty simple and streamlined. But what's so interesting about that area is it was on the map for us because of the high cash flow, low prices. So basically high rent and low home prices. But in just the last 6 months, there's been such a shortage of homes there that homes are going 20% over asking price, at least in the last few months. So maybe you've seen a little more than cash flow. Maybe your values have gone up, though you're not selling, so it doesn't really matter. But you're in contract on 4 properties in Florida. Is that right?
We are, yeah. So we've picked up a duplex in Houston. The company that I work for actually opened up a second office in Houston last year, and
Perfect.
between that and just for everything that you guys have been presenting, I'm just like, oh well, that's just 2 + 2 = 4. And so the Houston team I know has been around a long time, so it's a very easy decision to move forward. And then we're actually in contract for one in McKinney in the greater Dallas area. We actually flew out to Dallas because we really enjoyed the presentation, and it really helped to get a better idea of the areas. And that was something that one of our learnings, certainly walking away, was, oh well, that was a really nice area, and we saw the property pop up, and we responded within, I think, an hour or so. This was, I think they sent out the email on a Friday night, and it was during COVID, and that was probably the reason that we got it. Gives you an idea how we spend some of our Friday nights, I guess. But yeah, and so we've got that one closing, and then we've gone under contract for 4 more in Southwest Florida. We heard everything about the rising lumber costs, and wanted to lock in the contracts there. And so while those aren't yet to be completed, we figured we had to jump on the gun when we did. And I'm thankful we did, because I've been tracking all the markets, all the teams, the inventory, and it's been pretty dry since about September, October. Yeah, about September or so. So I'm really glad that we've moved forward when we did.
Yeah, that's great. There's been so much investor activity. It's crazy how many people are buying. This exodus to the suburbs, out of the cities and into the suburbs, definitely created some major demand.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you talked about challenges, and this is really important because people do think that that it's just going to be passive income from the day you buy it, and that's it, never a problem. It's not the case because we're talking about it's really a people industry at the end of the day. You've got people who are your clients who are living in your property and paying off your debt
Right.
for you.
And people managing it.
People managing it,
Right.
yeah. So what happened in Chicago? What was the challenge there and the lesson learned?
Yeah, I think one of the there were certain factors that were out of our control, and there were probably a couple things we could have done better. So the team, I guess, didn't have a great relationship with the city, and they came around and had marked our property as not being up to code, and they had all these demands that had it to get up to code. We were able to switch property managers, which did help in the short term, but that property was um, that it didn't we weren't able to collect rent because it was put in abatement for 2.5 years or something, which was pretty rough. But I think if I were to do anything different, it would really be able to better leverage my investment counselor, the inspection report, and really those two things. And I think that's one of the things that we've done. Even now, being able to look at the teams and their track records and their histories to try and preempt some of these things, leverage our investment counselors, leverage the other resources that we have. Because even when I get an inspection report, I don't necessarily know what to make of it, what to do with it. Should I walk away? Should I ask for additional sources of funds to fix this? We're still somewhat new to that, so being able to take pieces of information and actually make those actionable. So really those couple of things to further leverage the resources that we've had.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So to be clear, we no longer work with that team, as you
Absolutely.
know. And we learned something too in that process, which was you do need to verify that the work that has been done has been approved, that's been permitted.
Right.
If a tenant lives in a room that's not permitted, there's some liability there. So we know now that you can look that up. You can check with the city to make sure that those permits have been pulled and approved for the work that's being done. It's just, again, something that people might overlook. We're putting that on the checklist to make sure that it's not, and we've never had it happen with any of our other teams because they get those permits, but so we just never knew to check on that. So big lessons there for everybody for sure.
Yeah.
And on the inspection report, you can always call the inspector too to go through those items with them to see how bad they are. Sometimes the inspector just has to do kind of cover their what's also, so they want to report anything and everything that they find, just to do their job. But if you call them, they might say, oh, it's really not that bad, I just had to report it. Or it is really bad and you maybe need to have it fixed. So that's one way
Yeah.
to understand the inspection report better.
Yeah. And it seems like real estate investing, I mean, any investing is often 3 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like Kathy and I have been through that too. We've been through very similar challenges that you've had in different markets, and had to do a lot of things to get it up to code, to be able to be a rental. We had a city come down on us and all that, but
We're in the process of it right now.
yeah, so there's like always seems to be something. I mean, and on the flip side of it, that what we like about it is it's not like some of the stock that we've owned where all of a sudden it's vaporized and there's zero there, zero value. But then there's those 3 steps forward are often good wins. So what about some of the wins? What successes have you had in investing?
Yeah, certainly the experience with the team in Cincinnati has been really, really smooth. I've referred them to my brother, and so that's something that has worked out really well.
You get
And
cash flow and appreciation there, or?
there's some appreciation as well. And actually, one of the first properties that I got, I wasn't quite sure what to do with the excess cash flow, so I put it towards the mortgage. And of course, now I know. Okay, well, we could probably just use that to pick up another property. But as I was paying that down, it did go up a bit as well. So I was able to do a cash out refi and take that and move that into another property. So it's been really helpful, and they've just been a fantastic team to work with and to learn how some things can be done. And what property management can and should look like. So it's been a really great process and experience working with them. And so far in Houston, everything looks great. And if there's an opportunity to continue to build out our portfolio there, I think it would make a lot of sense to do that. And and with Florida, yeah, Texas and Florida, we're really looking forward to continuing to expand our portfolio there. And we're pretty excited with the introduction of the Charlotte team as well. That was a market that we had an interest in as well, but we weren't sure if it was too expensive. But
Yeah, they have had an enormous response.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. Yeah,
Barely keep up with it.
yeah, in a good way. Nice. So what's next for you guys? If we time traveled forward, maybe let's say 5 years, where do you see yourself and Michelle?
so she has brought this up. So she wants 20 properties by the time we turn 40, which is right around that time frame. And with where we're at, if everything closes the way it should by the end of next year, we'll be at 13 doors. And I think there's a couple of things that we're anticipating that we can invest, which will allow us to invest more. So I think we've identified the markets and teams we'll like to continue to work with, assuming everything continues to go as planned. And we're expecting the opportunity to be able to continue investing down that path. So yeah, I think the goal would be 20 doors over the next 5 years total, and we'll see if we can get there. And I know by that point that's not we're not going to stop there. So, but I think it's a good little benchmark to give us an idea where we're going today.
And you both have W-2 jobs?
We do, yeah. And now with the whole COVID situation and the opportunity to work from home, it does make it a lot easier as well. So I actually still work for a technology company in the Bay Area. That's where I grew up, and that's how I came upon you guys. And I had begun working remotely actually July of last year, but I had to still go into the office about twice a month for a few days at a time. And now with COVID, it'll be changing, but yeah, right now both of us are working from home, so it works out pretty well.
No, you turned it into a blessing.
Yeah, it's definitely come together pretty nicely.
Awesome.
Oh, very inspiring. So when you get to the 20 properties, besides deciding to expand from there, will your plan be to pay down those mortgages at that point, or just keep acquiring?
I think we're leaning towards continuing to acquire, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see at that point. But at the moment, I think it's going to be to continue to acquire. If the interest rates remain where they are, then I think it probably makes sense to continue down that path. Because if the interest rates for the non-conventional financing are still pretty low as well, then I feel like in some ways the government is giving us the direction that, that we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Very good.
Well, I'm curious that you've now you've been in the game a little while. What did you say, about 8 years, and learning this and actually applying it? So what advice would you have for someone who's brand new? Maybe they're a W-2 employee and they're thinking of getting into real estate investing. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I work training sales folks, and I did technology sales, which was another thing I picked up from Rich Dad Poor Dad. Get a sales job and use that to help build whatever business that you would like.
Nice.
And one of the things we've learned is that in order for folks to adopt something new, they have to acknowledge that they have a problem. And if they never acknowledge that there's a problem, then they're never really going to take the steps to proceed. And so I think the questions I would ask is, okay, well, kind of the same questions that you're asking me, Rich. In 5 years, 20 years down the road, what does the retirement plan look like? Do you want to just continue working in a W-2 job? Because if you do, then that's probably fine. But at what time are you going to want to walk away? I figure that there would probably be a point, but there might not be. And at that point, then you begin asking additional questions of, okay, well, how much do you need to retire at that point? How much do you have now? What's the gap? And how would you be able to make that up? And I think once you begin asking those questions, not just with retirement, but just the lifestyle that someone wants to live, how much money does that require? How much time does that require? Where are they now? What needs to change in order for that to happen? Then I think you begin forming the foundation for your why, because as we discussed earlier, it's not that there's a chart that I like about growth and what people think it looks like, which is just a linear path,
Right.
and what it actually looks like, which is a bunch of squiggly lines forwards and backwards and sideways.
Yeah. Hopefully
And
slowly going up.
exactly. And so I think that's being able to form the foundation of the why begins to, once you get a strong why, then you begin to figure out the how. And I think the how is certainly through education, and love what you guys do. I've referred you guys to friends, family, and colleagues. So,
Thank you.
but that's also, it's good. But I also know who's going to take action, who's not, because if they don't have a strong why, then the how doesn't really matter as much.
It's amazing. And it's also amazing how many people get in that analysis paralysis. They keep, thinking about it. And, even we've had people who've been members for years, and they just need to learn a little more before they take action. So I think that's a big one. It's like setting a date when, okay, this is the date I'm going to take action. And then when that date comes around, no, it's I'm going to take action in a year, because that year always keeps being a year. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we've also learned is this: different things will drive different people, and with some people, uncertainty can drive them. So if they're not sure that what their retirement might look like, and they have to start taking the steps to evaluate, then at least they're taking those steps.
Great.
But
that is action, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Wonderful. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you again so much for being here. And it's great to see you, even if virtually.
Yeah.
Maybe in person sometime soon.
Yep. Hopefully.
Yeah. I can't wait for the next event.
Awesome. We can't either.
We can't either.
Awesome.
All right. Well, take care, and I can't wait to have you back in about a year to hear what you've done since then.
Yeah. Would love for my wife to be able to join at that time too.
That'd be great. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Rich.
And thank you so much for joining us here on the RealWealth Show. You can go to realwealthshow.com to get all kinds of resources and information. There's blogs, there's webinars that we do every week on asset protection and tax savings, and how to read an inspection report or an appraisal report, and also get a referral to these teams nationwide who can help you. They're experts in their area. They either have their own property management company, or they have a really good relationship with one, and they're basically your boots on the street that will help you make wise decisions if you're buying from out of state, because everything's different, the rules different. It's hard to know which neighborhood is the right one. So again, you can get those referrals to people who have been highly rated by our members at realwealthshow.com. We'll see you next time.
Bye.